you ever come home and something just felt off? Not obvious. Nothing broken. Nothing missing. Just wrong. Like the air in your own apartment doesn't feel the same. I used to ignore that feeling. You hear a noise. You blame the neighbors. A door moves. You think it's the wind. Something falls. You tell yourself you just forgot where you left it. That's normal. We explain things so we don't have to think about them. But after a couple of things that happened to me, and one story a friend told me that I still can't explain, I don't ignore those signs anymore. Because sometimes it's not just a sound. It's not just your imagination. Sometimes you're not actually alone. These aren't just random horror stories. Some of this I experienced myself. Some of it happened to people I trust. And if there's one thing they all have in common, it's that moment when you realize someone else is already inside. This first one happened to me, and it started with something so small I almost ignored it. I came home late. Nothing unusual. Same routine. Same building. Same floor. Unlocked the door and stepped inside. Everything looked normal. Lights off. Quiet. Nothing out of place. I locked the door behind me, and that's when I noticed it. The second lock. It was open. My chest tightened a little, but not enough to panic. Because, yeah, you forget things sometimes. You think you locked something, but you didn't. It happens. I told myself that immediately. Probably just forgot. But here's the thing. I always lock both. Always. Without thinking. It's just a habit. So I stood there for a second, staring at it, trying to convince myself it didn't matter. And that's the moment people mess up. Because when something feels wrong, you don't double check. You explain it. I locked it, turned away, and walked deeper into the apartment, like nothing happened. And yeah, that's where I made the first mistake. I didn't turn on the lights right away. I don't know why. It just didn't feel necessary. The place was quiet. Normal quiet. At least, that's what I thought. I dropped my keys on the table. Same spot as always. Took a couple of steps further in, and then I heard it. From the kitchen. A sound. Soft. Like something sliding slightly on a surface. My chest tightened a bit. Not panic. Not yet. Because apartments make noise. Things shift. Fridges click. Neighbors move. You can explain a lot of things if you want to. So I stood there, listening, trying to catch it again. Nothing. Silence. I actually almost laughed it off. Like, yeah, just overthinking. But then it happened again. Clear this time. A small movement. Closer. My chest tightened more. Because now, it wasn't random. It had direction. I looked toward the kitchen. Dark. Still. Nothing visible. And that's when I said something I shouldn't have. Hello? I don't know why I said it. Instinct, maybe. Silence. No response. But the moment I spoke, everything changed. Because now, whatever made that sound knew I was there. I waited a second. Nothing moved. No sound. Just silence again. So I told myself, check it. And that's it. Simple. Walk in, turn on the light, see nothing, move on. That's how it's supposed to go. I stepped toward the kitchen, slow, not because I was scared, just careful. Reached for the switch and froze. My chest tightened instantly because the light was already on. Not fully. Dim, like it had been left that way. And I knew for a fact I didn't leave it like that. I always turn everything off before leaving. Always. I stood there, hands still near the switch, not touching it, just looking inside. Everything looked normal. Table, sink, counter, nothing out of place. And that's the worst part. Because when everything looks fine, you start questioning yourself. Maybe I did leave it on. Maybe I just don't remember. That's exactly what I thought. So, yeah. I stepped inside, turned the light fully on, and tried to shake it off. But the moment I did, I noticed something else. Something small, something easy to miss. One of the chairs was slightly pulled out. And in that moment, something became undeniable. I wasn't the last one who used that room. I didn't move right away. Just stood there, looking at the chair. Because it wasn't just pulled out. It was turned slightly, facing the entrance, facing me. My chest tightened a little more, because that's not something that happens by accident. You don't bump a chair and it turns like that. Not perfectly. Not like someone placed it there. I tried to explain it anyway. Of course I did. Maybe I moved it earlier. Maybe I forgot. Same pattern. Same mistake. I stepped closer, slow, watching it, half expecting it to move again, but it didn't. It just stayed there, like it had been waiting. I pushed it back in, normal, exactly where it should be. And for a second, that helped. Like, okay, fixed, nothing to worry about. And then, behind me, a sound from the hallway. My chest tightened instantly, because I was in the kitchen now, which meant whatever I heard was somewhere else in the apartment. And in that moment, something became undeniable. If something moved in the kitchen before, and now something moved behind me, then I wasn't following the sound anymore. Something was moving around me. I turned back toward the hallway, slow, because now I didn't feel like checking anymore. I felt like confirming something I didn't want to know. The apartment was still dark out there, quiet, no movement, nothing visible. I stepped out of the kitchen, one step at a time, listening, trying to catch anything. Then I looked at the door. My chest tightened instantly, because the second lock was closed. I stopped, just stared at it, trying to process what I was seeing, because I had just locked it from the inside. I remember doing it. I remember turning it. And now it was already turned, fully, like it had been set that way the whole time. My chest tightened harder, because that means one thing. Either I imagined unlocking it earlier, or someone else locked it again from the inside while I was in the kitchen. I didn't move closer, didn't touch it, just stood there, staring. Because at that point, it wasn't about the door anymore. It was about the fact that something in my apartment was interacting with the same things I was. And in that moment, something became undeniable. I wasn't the only one who had control over that space. I didn't go to the front door, not after that. Because if something locked it, then checking it wasn't going to help. So I looked the other way, down the hallway, toward the bedroom. My chest tightened again, because the door was closed, fully. And I don't close it, ever. I leave it open, always. I don't even even think about it. It's just how I keep it. So seeing it like that felt wrong immediately. I stood there for a second, just looking at it, trying to replay the moment I came in, trying to remember, was it closed? Did I just not notice? But no, I would have seen it. I always see it. And that's the problem, because when you're sure about something and reality doesn't match it, there's no easy explanation left. And then a sound from inside the room. My chest tightened instantly, soft, like fabric shifting, or someone moving slightly on a bed. I didn't move, didn't say anything, because now I knew exactly where it was. And in that moment, something became undeniable. Whatever was in my apartment was now in the one room I couldn't see into. I didn't open the door, not right away, because at that point, opening it felt like a commitment, like whatever was on the other side would stop being a possibility and become real. So I just stood there, listening, trying to catch another sound, something to confirm it, something to explain it. Then it happened. From inside the room, a small shift, closer to the door. My chest tightened instantly, because that wasn't random. That wasn't the bed. That wasn't something settling. That was movement, directed. And then silence, heavy, like something had stopped right near the door, waiting. I didn't move, didn't breathe properly, just stood there, staring at it. And that's when it hit me. The timing, the way it moved, only after I stopped, only after I focused on it. My chest tightened harder, because that means one thing. It wasn't just inside the room. It knew exactly where I was. And in that moment, something became undeniable. It wasn't hiding from me. It was reacting to me. I didn't reach for the handle. I didn't try to open the door, because now it felt like the worst possible move. So I just stood there, watching it, waiting, trying to stay still. Then it moved. The handle, slow, just a slight shift at first. My chest tightened instantly, because that's not something you mishear. That's not a random noise. That's a direct interaction from the other side. I didn't step back, didn't react, just watched. Because once you see that, everything becomes real. Then it moved again, a little more this time, not trying to open, not forcing anything, just testing it, like something checking how it works. My chest tightened harder, because that means whatever was inside that room, I wasn't trapped. It had full access. I just hadn't used it yet. Then it stopped, completely still, and the silence came back, worse than before. Because now it wasn't about, is something there? It was about when it decides to come out. And in that moment, something became undeniable. It didn't need me to open the door. It already knew it could. I didn't touch it. Didn't even reach for it. But the moment I thought about stepping back, it moved again. The handle turned, slow, controlled, and the door opened. Just a little. A small gap. Enough to see inside, but not enough to feel safe. My chest tightened instantly, because that's worse than an opening fully. When it's just slightly open, you don't know what's there. You don't know where to look. You just wait. I didn't step closer. Didn't lean in. Just stood there, staring at the gap. Dark inside. No light. No movement. Nothing visible. inside, breathing, slow, steady. My chest tightened hard because that wasn't mine. That was an echo. That was someone right there on the other side. And then I stopped the breathing completely, like it knew I heard it. And in that moment, something became undeniable. It didn't open the door to come out. It opened it so I would look inside. I didn't look away. I didn't step back. Because at that point, if I moved, it felt like I'd lose track of it. So I just stared at the gap. I'm trying to see something, anything. But it stayed dark, empty. But then my eyes adjusted just a little, and I saw it. A shape right behind the door. Not in the room, not further inside. Pressed up against it, like it had been standing there the whole time. My chest tightened instantly, because it wasn't moving, not shifting, not reacting, just there, too close, closer than it should be. Then it leaned slightly toward the gap, and I froze, because now, if I moved even a little, we'd be face to face, and that's the moment you realize something you can't undo. And in that moment, something became undeniable. It didn't come to the door after I got there. It had already been standing there, waiting for me to look. I didn't move. Couldn't. Because now, there was no question anymore. Something was right there, on the other side, close enough that if the door opened even a little more, we'd be face to face. My chest was tight, breathing shallow, just trying to stay still. Then it moved, not toward me, not away. The door slowly started to close. My chest tightened instantly because that's worse. When something hides again, it means it chose to. The gap got smaller, smaller, until the door shut completely, soft, controlled. No slam, no rush, just closed. Silence. Heavy. Thick. Like the whole apartment stopped with it. I didn't touch the handle. Didn't try to open it. Because now, it wasn't about what was inside the room. It was about the fact that it knew how to use the door the same way I do. And in that moment, something became undeniable. It didn't need to come out. It could control when I got to see it. And when I didn't go for the door. Not after that. Because whatever was behind it already proved it could control when things opened and closed. So I just stood there, trying to think, trying to figure out what to do next. Then, a sound. From the living room, my chest tightened instantly, because I was in the hallway, right in front of the bedroom door, which meant whatever I heard was somewhere else now. Not behind the door, not in that room, somewhere behind me. I turned slowly, careful, like moving too fast would make it worse. The living room looked normal, exactly the same as before. Nothing moved, nothing visible, but I knew what I heard. A small shift, like something stepping lightly on the floor. And that's when it really hit me. My chest tightened harder, because there's only one way that makes sense. If something was just behind that door, and now I hear it somewhere else, then it didn't leave the room, not the way I would. It moved without using the door. And in that moment, something became undeniable. It wasn't contained in one place anymore. It was moving through the apartment without needing to be seen. I didn't rush in. I didn't run. Because at that point, moving fast felt like giving it control. So I just turned, slow, toward the living room, everything looked normal, exactly how I left it. And that's the problem. Because now I knew normal doesn't mean safe. Then another change. From the corner of my eye, the kitchen, and my chest tightened instantly because the light went off, not flickering, not dimming, just off, like someone hit the switch. I froze because I didn't touch it. I hadn't even gone back in there. And now it was dark again, just like when I first walked in. My chest tightened harder because that means something else was interacting with the same space, the same switches, the same layout, like it knew exactly where everything was. And then a sound from inside the kitchen, closer now, a small step. My chest tightened because now it wasn't hiding anymore, not fully. It was moving, and it didn't care if I heard it. And in that moment, something became undeniable. It wasn't just in my apartment. It was using it like it belonged there. I didn't go into the kitchen. Not after that. Because now it wasn't about checking rooms. It was about realizing it could be anywhere. So I stayed in the hallway, watching both directions, trying to keep track of everything. Then something small caught my attention, the table, right where I left my keys. My chest tightened instantly because they weren't there anymore. I didn't drop them anywhere else. I remember the sound. I remember placing them down, same spot I always use. And now, nothing. Just the table, empty. I stepped closer, slow, like maybe I just missed them somehow, but no. They were gone, completely. My chest tightened harder, because that's not something you misplace in a few minutes. That's not something that disappears on its own. Then a sound behind me, close, metal, a light clink. I froze. I didn't turn, because I already knew what it was. And in that moment, something became undeniable. It wasn't just moving around my apartment. It was taking things and moving them while I wasn't looking. I didn't turn right away, because at that point, turning felt like exactly what it wanted. So I just stood there, still, listening. That metal sound again, soft, right behind me. And my chest tightened harder, because I knew exactly what it was. I just didn't want to see it. Then it happened. The sound, clear this time. Keys hitting the floor, right behind my feet. I flinched, couldn't stop it. But I didn't turn. Not immediately. I just stood there, trying to breathe, trying to keep control of something. Then slowly, I looked down. My keys. Exactly mine. Same keychain, same everything. Just lying there. Like they had been placed there. Not thrown. Not dropped from a distance. Just set down. My chest tightened. Because that means one thing. Whatever moved them was close enough to put them right behind me. Then another sound. Not metal. Not movement. Breathing. Closer than before. And in that moment, something became undeniable. It wasn't just somewhere in the apartment anymore. It was standing right behind me. I didn't go for the door. Not after that. Because whatever was behind it already proved it could control when things opened and closed. So I just stood there, trying to think, trying to figure out what to do next. Then a sound from the living room. My chest tightened instantly because I was in the hallway, right in front of the bedroom door, which meant whatever I heard was somewhere else now. Not behind the door, not not in that room, somewhere behind me. I turned slowly, careful, like moving too fast would make it worse. The living room looked normal, exactly the same as before. Nothing moved, nothing visible. But I knew what I heard. A small shift, like something stepping lightly on the floor. And that's when it really hit me. My chest tightened harder. Because there's only one way that makes sense. If something was just behind that door, and now I hear it somewhere else, then it didn't leave the room. Not the way I would. It moved without using the door. And in that moment, something became undeniable. It wasn't contained in one place anymore. It was moving through the apartment without needing to be seen. I didn't rush in. Didn't run. Because at that point, moving fast felt like giving it control. So I just turned, slow, toward the living room. Everything looked normal, exactly how I left it. And that's the problem. Because now I knew normal doesn't mean safe. Then another change from the corner of my eye, the kitchen. My chest tightened instantly because the light went off, not flickering, not dimming, just off, like someone hit the switch. I froze because I didn't touch it. I hadn't even gone back in there. And now it was dark again, just like when I first walked in. My chest tightened harder because that means something else was interacting with the same space, the same switches, the same layout, like it knew exactly where everything was. And then a sound from inside the kitchen, closer now, a small step. My chest tightened because now it wasn't hiding anymore, not fully. It was moving, and it didn't care if I heard it. And in that moment, something became undeniable. It wasn't just in my apartment. It was using it like it belonged there. I didn't go into the kitchen, not after that. Because now it wasn't about checking rooms. It was about realizing it could be anywhere. So I stayed in the hallway, watching both directions, trying to keep track of everything. Then something small caught my attention. The table, right where I left my keys. My chest tightened instantly because they weren't there anymore. I didn't drop them anywhere else. I remember the sound. I remember placing them down, same spot I always use. And now, nothing. Just the table, empty. I stepped closer, slow, like maybe I just missed them somehow, but no, they were gone, completely. My chest tightened harder, because that's not something you misplace in a few minutes. That's not something that disappears on its own. Then a sound behind me, close, metal, a light clink. I froze, didn't turn, because I already knew what it was. And in that moment, something became undeniable. It wasn't just moving around my apartment. It was taking things and moving them while I wasn't looking. I didn't turn right away, because at that point, turning felt like exactly what it wanted. So I just stood there, still, listening. That metal sound again, soft, right behind me. My chest tightened harder because I knew exactly what it was. I just didn't want to see it. Then it happened. The sound, clear this time. Keys hitting the floor, right behind my feet. I flinched. Couldn't stop it. But I didn't turn. Not immediately. I just stood there, trying to breathe and trying to keep control of something. Then slowly, I looked down. My keys. Exactly mine. Same keychain. Same everything. Just lying there. like they had been placed there, not thrown, not dropped from a distance, just set down. My chest tightened, because that means one thing. Whatever moved them was close enough to put them right behind me. Then, another sound. Not metal, not movement. Breathing. Closer than before. And in that moment, something became undeniable. It wasn't just somewhere in the apartment anymore. It was standing right behind me. I didn't turn. Not after that. Because at this point, I already knew where it was. Right behind me. Close enough that if I moved, I'd touch it. My chest was tight, breathing shallow, trying not to react. Because reacting felt like the worst possible thing I could do then. It happened. A whisper. So close I felt it more than heard it. Right next to my ear. My chest tightened instantly because it wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It was clear enough. My voice. Exactly mine. Same tone. Same way I speak when I'm quiet. You should have left. I froze. Completely. Because that's not something you can ignore. Hearing your own voice from a place you're not. I didn't answer. Didn't move. Just stood there. Trying to understand how something could sound that exact. Then it shifted. Slightly. Behind me. Closer. Like it leaned in. And whispered again. Quieter. Calmer. You're not alone here. My chest tightened hard because that wasn't new information anymore. That was confirmation. And in that moment, something became undeniable. It didn't need to hide anymore. It was close enough that I already knew exactly where it was. And I didn't turn around. Not after that. Because at this point, seeing it wouldn't help. It would just make it real in a way I couldn't undo. So I did the only thing that felt like a choice. I stepped forward, away from it. Just one step. My chest tightened, waiting for something. A sound, a movement, anything. But nothing happened. No step behind me, no shift, no breathing getting closer. Just silence. I took another step, same result, nothing. My chest tightened again, but differently this time, because that wasn't relief. That was wrong. It should have followed. It should have reacted, but it didn't. And that's worse, because when something that close suddenly does nothing, it means something changed. I stopped, didn't move again, didn't turn, just stood there, trying to feel where it was now. And that's when it hit me, hard, because the air behind me felt empty, completely empty. And in that moment, something became undeniable. It didn't stay behind me. It moved somewhere else, without me noticing. I didn't turn around, not immediately, because at that point, turning felt like a risk every single time. Like every time I looked somewhere, something else moved, but I had to check. Slowly, I looked back down the hallway, and my chest tightened instantly. The bedroom door was open, fully, not slightly, not the way it had been before, wide open. And I knew. I didn't touch it. I didn't go near it. It had closed on its own. And now it was open again. My chest tightened harder, because that means one thing. Whatever was inside before wasn't there anymore. And then a sound from inside the room, soft, almost familiar. Fabric moving, like someone sitting down or shifting their weight. I didn't step closer, didn't move, just stood there, watching the doorway, waiting, trying to see something in the dark. Then a shape, not clear, not fully visible, just enough. Something moved inside, and in that moment, something became undeniable. It didn't leave the bedroom. It just changed where it was standing, so I'd have to come to it. I didn't walk in, not right away, because something about the way the door was open felt intentional, like it wanted me to see inside. So I stayed where I was, in the hallway, looking in, letting my eyes adjust. My chest was tight as the darkness inside the room slowly started to clear, shapes forming, edges becoming visible. The bed, the window, the chair, and then I saw it, sitting there, on the edge of the bed. My chest tightened instantly, because it wasn't moving, not shifting, not reacting, just sitting, facing slightly toward the door, toward me, same height, same outline, perfect, like someone waiting. Then it moved, just a small shift, weight adjusting. The mattress pressed down slightly. My chest tightened hard, because that's real. That's physical. That's not a shadow. That's not imagination. Then, slowly, it tilted its head toward me. And in that moment, something became undeniable. It wasn't hiding anymore. It was sitting there, waiting for me to come closer. I didn't move, not toward it, not away. Just stood there, watching. Because at that point, getting closer felt like exactly what it wanted. Then it spoke, quiet, calm, my voice, exactly mine. Come here. My chest tightened instantly, because that wasn't a suggestion. That wasn't curiosity. That was direct. I didn't answer, didn't react, just stayed where I was. Then it repeated it. Same tone, same calm delivery. Come closer. My chest tightened harder, because my body shifted, just slightly, a step forward, unwanted, uncontrolled. I stopped it, forced it, locked my position. But it didn't matter, because now it wasn't about whether I would move. It was about how long I could resist. Then it leaned forward just a little and said something quieter, almost like it didn't need to try anymore. You already are. My chest tightened hard, because I looked down and realized I had already stepped closer without noticing. And in that moment, something became undeniable. It didn't need to make me move. It just needed me to not realize that I already was. I didn't step again. Not after that. Because now, every movement felt like it was already decided. I stayed still, focused, trying to hold on to something I could control. Then it spoke again. My voice, calm, certain. You're going to take another step. My chest tightened instantly, because I wasn't planning to. I wasn't even thinking about it. And that's exactly why it hit harder, because it said it before I did anything. I forced myself to stay where I was, locked my legs, focused on not moving. Then it tilted its head slightly, watching me, and said, "You're trying to stop." My chest tightened harder, because that's exactly what I was doing. Not reacting, not moving, just trying to hold control. Then it spoke again, quieter this time, almost like it didn't need to try anymore. "You won't." And my body shifted, a small step forward, uncontrolled, unwanted, perfect. My chest tightened, because now it wasn't just ahead of me. It wasn't just reacting. It was deciding. And And in that moment, something became undeniable. I wasn't choosing where I was going anymore. I was just following what I already knew I would do. I tried to stop, really tried, locked my legs, held my breath, anything to keep control. But the moment it said, "You won't," something in me gave way. Not fear, something quieter, like the decision had already been made. My chest tightened as my knees bent slightly. Unwanted, uncontrolled. I pushed against it, but it didn't matter, because now it wasn't forcing me. It was removing the reason not to. Then it spoke again, my voice, soft, certain. "Sit down." And I did, slow, controlled, like it was my choice, even though it wasn't. I sat on the edge of the bed, a few feet from it, close enough to see it clearly now. Same face, same expression. Perfect. My chest tightened hard because it stayed standing, exactly where I had been moments ago. Then it adjusted its posture, the way I do, and my body shifted to match. Even sitting, I wasn't fully in control, and in that moment, something became undeniable. It didn't need me standing anymore. That position was already taken. I didn't move, didn't even try anymore, because at that point, it wasn't about control. It was about watching what it would do next. It stood there for a second, looking at me. Then it turned, casual, like nothing was wrong, like everything was exactly how it should be. My chest tightened as it walked past me, close, too close, and I still didn't react, because something in me already knew that wouldn't change anything. I stepped into the hallway, moved through the apartment, calm, natural, exactly how I would. Then it stopped near the front door, reached for the lock. My chest tightened instantly, because now it wasn't just inside, it was about to leave. It unlocked the second lock, turned the handle, opened the door, and before stepping out, it paused, slightly, then said something quiet, almost like a reminder. "I've got this." My chest tightened hard, because that wasn't for me. That was confirmation. Then it stepped outside. The door closed, and I heard the lock again from the other side. And in that moment, something became undeniable. It didn't come into my apartment. It just used it to become me before it left. I didn't stay on the bed. Not after that. Because once it left, something in me snapped. Instinct. I stood up. Fast this time. Not careful. Not controlled. Just movement. My chest was tight as I stepped into the hallway, toward the door. Because if it just walked out, then I can too. That's how it works, right? I reached the door, grabbed the handle, turned it, and it opened. Easily. No resistance. No lock. My chest tightened, but in a different way, because that part was normal. Too normal. I stepped outside into the hallway, and that's when it hit me. Hard. Something was off. The space felt empty. Not quiet. Not calm. Just wrong. I looked down the hall. No one there. No movement. No sound. Like nothing had just happened. My chest tightened harder, because if it walked out seconds before me, it should still be here. It should be somewhere. But it wasn't. Then I looked back at my door, and that's when everything changed. Because the number on it wasn't mine. And in that moment, something became undeniable. I didn't step out into my hallway. I stepped out somewhere else. I didn't go back inside, not immediately, because at that point, I wasn't even sure that was my apartment anymore. I stepped further into the hallway, looking around, trying to find something familiar, something that made sense. Same layout, same lighting, same doors, but it didn't feel the same. Then, a door opened, a few apartments down. Someone stepped out. My chest tightened instantly, because this was it. A real person. Normal. Someone who could confirm I wasn't losing it. I walked toward them, fast. Hey. They looked at me, confused, but not the way I expected. Not like they didn't understand what I was saying, like they didn't recognize me. My chest tightened. I live here, I said. This is my floor. They frowned slightly, looked past me, toward my apartment, then back at me, and said something that hit harder than anything so far. No, you don't. My chest tightened hard, because that wasn't hesitation. That wasn't uncertainty. That was certainty. Then, from behind me, a sound. My door opening. And in that moment, something became undeniable. The person they recognized wasn't me anymore. I didn't turn right away. I couldn't. Because I already knew what I was going to see. The door behind me opened. Slow. Normal. Like nothing was wrong. My chest was tight as I finally turned. And there it was. Standing in the doorway. Me. Same clothes. Same posture. Same face. Perfect. Like nothing had changed. Like it had always been there. The person in the hallway looked at it and relaxed completely. Oh, hey, they said. Normal tone. Like they knew it. Like they recognized it. My chest tightened hard because that wasn't how they looked at me. Not even close. Then it responded. My voice. Calm. Casual. Hey. And that was it. No hesitation. No confusion. Just a normal interaction. Like everything made sense. Then it glanced at me. Briefly. Not surprised. Not concerned. Just aware. And looked back at them. Like I wasn't important. Like I wasn't even part of the situation. And in that moment, something became undeniable. I didn't lose my place in that apartment. I lost it in the world outside of it. I stepped forward without thinking. Because that's the moment you try to fix it. You say something. You explain. You prove who you are. My chest was tight as I looked at them, and then at it. Nothing. No sound. My throat moved, my mouth opened, but nothing came out. My chest tightened harder because I felt it. The words, the breath, everything was there, but it didn't reach outside, like I wasn't connected to the air anymore. I tried again, louder, forced, nothing. The person didn't react, didn't even look at me, like I hadn't spoken at all. Then it spoke instead. My voice, clear, normal. Sorry, he's just passing through. My chest tightened hard because they nodded, accepted it. Like that made sense. Like I was exactly what it said. Someone irrelevant. Someone not part of this. And in that moment, something became undeniable. It didn't need to silence me. It just removed my ability to be heard. I didn't try to speak again. There was no point. So I stepped back, away from the door, away from them. Because at that point, I needed to understand what I even was now. My chest was tight as I moved toward the wall. There's a mirror there, small. I use it all the time without thinking. So I stood in front of it, looked up, and my chest dropped instantly. Nothing. No reflection. Just the hallway behind me. Empty. Clear. Like I wasn't standing there at all. I stepped closer. Slow. Trying to catch something. A shadow, a distortion, anything. Nothing. Then a movement behind me in the reflection, but not from me. My chest tightened hard because I could see it walking behind me in the mirror. The other me, the one from the apartment, moving normally, talking, existing, while I stood there invisible. And in that moment, something became undeniable. I didn't just lose my place in that apartment. I lost my place in reality itself. I didn't stay in front of the mirror. Not after that. Because once you see something like that, you don't keep checking. You move. So I turned, went straight back to the door, fast this time. Because whatever was happening, it started there. My chest was tight as I reached it. Same number, same hallway, same everything. But it didn't feel the same anymore. I grabbed the handle, turned it, opened the door, and froze. My chest dropped instantly because it wasn't my apartment. Not even close. Different layout, different furniture, different smell. Everything wrong. Someone else's place. Someone else's life. I stepped back immediately, closed the door, looked at the number again. Same. Exactly the same. Then a sound from inside. My chest tightened. Footsteps coming toward the door. Not mine. Not his. Someone else. And in that moment, something became undeniable. I didn't leave my apartment. I lost the only place that still connected me to it. I didn't stay there. Not after that. Because at some point, you stop trying to fix it. You just understand it. My chest still tightens when I think about it. Not because of what I saw, but because of how it started. Something small. A lock. A sound. A door that felt just slightly wrong. And I ignored it. Like everyone does. You explain things. You tell yourself it's nothing. You convince yourself you're overthinking. But sometimes, that feeling is the only warning you get. Because whatever was in that apartment, it didn't break in. It didn't force anything. It was already there. Waiting for me to notice. Waiting for me to doubt myself just enough to stay. So yeah, if you ever come home and something feels off, even just a little, don't ignore it. Don't explain it away. Don't stay longer than you need to, because if you do, there's a chance you won't be the one who walks out. Thanks for watching. If you made it this far, you probably get why I don't ignore that feeling anymore. And I'm actually curious, have you ever had a moment in your own place where something just felt off? Not obvious, not explainable, just wrong. Did you check it? Or did you ignore it? Drop it in the comments. I read all of them. And if you're into these kinds of stories, real, close to home, the kind that could actually happen, make sure you subscribe, because I've got more coming, and they only get worse. See you in the next one.